A pleasant good morning. Good morning, one and all. Welcome to today's episode of Speaking Out, Exposing Corruption and Incompetence. Today is Monday, the 10th day of November in the year of our Lord 2025. So here we are once again, this good day, another great day that the Lord has made. Let's rejoice and be glad in it. Let's give praise and thanks for being in the land of the living, because it is indeed a privilege to be in the land of the living, and we should never, ever take that for granted. So welcome one and all. And as we tell you, share the live, let them know that we are on. This morning, we know you schedule, or the gates are open at 8 o'clock, most times 8 o'clock on the dot. That's 9 o'clock Guyana time. And this morning, there was a little bit of glitch. There's a little change in the platform, which caused the gates to be open at 2 minutes after 8. And of course, immediately, students were in the schoolyard waiting for the doors to be open and for classes to commence. So here we are once again. Share the live, share the live, share the live. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. I hope you are looking forward to a productive week. My colleague CC is in the studio waiting to bring you credible, valuable information. So share, share, share. We have a lot to tell you. I sat down a while ago trying to sort out which are some of the things that we're going to deal with today and some that we have to leave back for another episode. Because we got to bring you the updated stuff, and even as we were coming on the air, we had more news coming in that we need to bring to your attention this morning. So share, share, share. Give us the thumbs up when you come in, and we are going to bring you the credible, valuable information. Again, I want to thank all of you who have been coming here in your numbers. We have had exceedingly large numbers on the live and people viewing on YouTube thereafter. And again, to remind you to subscribe to the channel. I am aware that many persons have not subscribed. Subscribe. You go to YouTube, you're going to see they say subscribe. And then once you subscribe, there's a notification button, a little bell. You hit that bell, and you're going to get the notification whenever the program is scheduled, when the program goes live, also when anything at all is posted on the page. Speaking Out, Exposing Corruption and Incompetence on YouTube or on Facebook. So share, 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 and we are going to be with you. Again, I want to compliment those students, many of you, thousands on the live, and thousands, tens of thousands on YouTube and Facebook after the program. So share, share, share. And as I've said, we're going to be with you. Now, we start with the unpleasant but necessary announcement. We got to keep the public informed, keep former members and students informed. And we do so by starting with those sad announcements. And the one this morning we start with, we did tell you about the funeral arrangement for the late Inspector Colbert Ali, who was to be buried today. I did say that there was to be a viewing at Manchester this morning. I understand that might have completed, and the body will now move to the Myconi Methodist Church for a service which begins at 2 p.m. Right? So, and then he will be laid to rest in a nearby cemetery. Then we have a death to announce. It occurred last week, Tuesday. Death of retired inspector, I think he was when he retired. Munian used to be the driver of President Arthur Chung. He used to be stationed at TSU, but we only used to see him at TSU when he came to collect his salary, right? But he was actually stationed at TSU, and the records at TSU were attached to State House, where he drove President Chung. And even when President Chung no longer was president, Munian continued to drive President Chung. He passed last Tuesday. Then there's a death to be announced of a former officer of the Ghana Defense Force, Stanley Europe. Stanley Europe died recently. I'm not sure the circumstances are where, but Stanley Europe. I know that he was a squad mate of Malcolm Harry Paul and the late pilot, the short man. His name escapes me right now. So Stanley died recently. Mike Charles, the lead pilot Mike Charles, they were squad mates. And then, some people just really get it rough, really get it rough. I learned yesterday of the death of the sister of retired Assistant Commissioner Gavin Primo. Yesterday, somebody told me that his sister died in the US. And I say some people just really, really get it rough. Because in the past year, this is about the fourth or fifth death in that family. Fourth or fifth death in that family. And Gavin, condolences to you. And of course, condolences to all the relatives, friends, colleagues of those who I have mentioned before. And then a weekend, no weekend passed without tragedy, in Guyana. There were several accidents, but I don't think any so far has been fatal. But then death, drowning. I read yesterday of the drowning of a 2-year-old child in Morocco. I think, yeah, Morocco. And Morocco, in case you don't know, is a indigenous village in the Mica region. There's somewhere in the Mica or Maikoni Creek, an indigenous village. And the circumstances is very troubling, because we understand that this 2-year-old child, along with others, went to a nearby creek to bathe, right? And then they discovered him missing, and then by the time they checked, they saw him floating somewhere. 2-year-old. And then it is reported too that a 17-year-old drowned during a swimming outing in Port Kaituma. 17-year-old drowned during a swimming outing. So tragedy after tragedy. And again, condolences to the relatives of those parents in the case of these 17 and 2-year-old parents as well. Condolences to you all. And then we had yesterday the burial of the victim of the bomb, Soraya Bourne. She was buried yesterday, and I saw in the news that the funeral was attended by several persons, including the Minister of Home Affairs. Well, Minister, you look like you turned you're a funeral lady now, because only last week you were at the funeral of the policeman who was murdered by the businessman. Now you're at another funeral. Watch it before you beat people like Gadraj, who had so many policemen killed while he was minister. He was going to funerals very, very frequently. Watch it. So those are the sad announcements. Let me make the happier ones in terms of birthdays. Birthday greetings today are going out to woman inspector. I think she's inspector, I'm not sure. Could be higher rank, but I remember she was inspector. Stacy Noble. Stacy used to be at the TSU in the registry for some time. I think today is her natal day. Also, a former member who is a regular student, Don Profit. He is observing a natal day today as well. And a countryman of mine back in the day, Kenneth Paul, we call him Chooks. Chooks is observing a natal day today. And belated birthday greetings are going out to woman chief inspector, the retired woman chief inspector, Patsy Levens. Yeah, Patsy celebrated recently. And former Prime Minister Hamilton Green celebrated a natal day yesterday as well. And in terms of advanced birthday greetings, we have advanced birthday greetings going out to the former police sergeant, Eric Tishmaker. Eric used to be at Linden. He's celebrating soon. And Angela Fraser McDonald from Region 5. Angela is celebrating a natal day soon as well. So we have those announcements. And I hope you all enjoy your natal day. Hope that you live to see many, many, many more birthdays, as we call it. Now, let me bring in CC, Mr. Conway, and then what we're going to do, we have some other stuff to talk about before we go into the main menu, so to speak. CC, welcome. Hope you had a wonderful weekend.
Good morning. Happy to be in the land of the living to do God's work. Yes, I had a nice, quiet weekend. Able to spend quality time with the family. My condolences to those persons who relatives passed away. Gavin, by I know you're making out by talking about Gavin from retired assistant commissioner. You're getting a barrage of that's very close ones, sisters, brothers, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, mother-in-law, crab buddy. My sympathy goes with you, bro, Gavin. And Mr. Comrade Hamilton Green, I spoke with him last night, celebrated his 91st birth anniversary. And we come a long way. And let me talk a little story, because he was kind of instrumental in me joining the Guyana Police Force. I remember I talked before about when I was being processed at Fort Wellington, and I jumped on the scale and I had 130 pounds. And the corporal there who was doing the processing say, you gotta get 135 or nothing. You can't hold on no policeman, no thief man with 130 pounds. So I said, but I got some qualifications. He said, right now I'm looking at the pounds. And I remember the officer was there, said, by the time you're ready for Conway, Conway gonna put on the 5 pounds. So he go through that process. And after then, I kept checking with the police and checking with him at the police training school. Because by then I did what we call final medical. I went on a final selection for a panel and I took measurement for uniform. And all he telling me, when we're ready, we're going to send for you. When we're ready, we're going to send for you. You analyst. My sister used to work with the Green in Durban Backlands there. So I spoke to her. And then a day she tell me, was a Friday. She said, Comrade Green said must go and see him at Durban Backlands. I had a old bicycle. I used to live in Kingston. And I rode my bicycle and I went to Durban Backlands. I didn't know Georgetown too good. I must use rode through a lot of one-way streets and all that kind of thing. And he picked up his phone and he called the commissioner of Carl Austin and explained Carl Austin. And then he told me I must go same Friday and see Donald Haynes, the commandant. I went there and I saw Donald Haynes, explained to him. And he buzzing for the corporal. He said, you know anything about youngster Clinton Conway? I said, no, 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 that name doesn't ring a bell. I said, but I've been coming to you all the time. And all you're telling me is when we're ready for you, we're gonna send for you. Man said, go and bring his file. He went and he brought the file. And the Haynes screwed up his face, took his fist and slammed down on the desk. Said, Corporal, I already warned you about the slip shot there, you slip shot where you doing the work. Why was this youngster sent for? Look, he passed all the exam, he passed all the medical, he did final selection, he had measurement for uniform. Why was he sent for? Harry, go outside. I'm gonna deal with you subsequently. And then he told me that the badge was going in the force on Monday. Monday, and I'm gonna come in, go outside, he said, and talk to them girls there, and they will tell you exactly what you have to bring in. And the Monday morning, I was 9027 Constable Conway, thanks to Mr. Hamilton Green. And Comrade Green, I want to wish you well. And you're only 9 away from a century, 9 away from a century. You can do it in singles. Singles will do it. Remember when Brian Lara scored, broke the world record. When he broke the world record, he scored. He had 99 singles when he scored 375, and when he made 400 not out, he had 147 singles. So singles can do it for you, Mr. Green, and I know you're gonna make it with singles. But my advice to you, and if I may advise you, Comrade Green, is that go for the singles, but make sure the pitch you're going to play on, make sure it's well prepared. It must be both something in there for you, for both the batsman and the bowler. And above all, protect yourself. Put on your gloves. Because as we get older, we have much more use of our fingers. We may need the fingers to hold up the bat. We may need the fingers to put things in place. Go for the singles, avoid the sharp singles. And don't mind how they're floating it up. pot in the crease. Pot in the crease, you're going to make this century and we'll be there to celebrate with you. So congratulations on your 94th and I'll be there to congratulate you when you score that glorious century.
Thank you very much, my brother. Thank you. I neglected to recognize those who were here early. I'm going to do so very quickly. We had at 8:02, as I said, we had a little delay. Wayne was here. Then it was Paulette, Derek, Gavin, Ivan, Danny is here. Then after Ivan, it was Earl, then Grantley, Felicia, Peter, Lucius is here very early, Monica, Janella, Aubrey, Brian, Puran, Paulette, Gibbo is here. Then we have Desiree from Georgia, Courtney, um, Sean, Terrence, Rosalind, Pinky, and the list goes on. And then when the doors were open, those are the people in the schoolyard. When we open, let me see who were the first. I suspect I know who it will be, but let me just confirm that when we open the school door, the first student in would have been drum roll, drum roll, drum roll, drum roll. First student in would have been Edward, usually very early there in the class, in the school in this classroom. Then it was Rosie, Pam, Joan from New Amsterdam, Carlton, Joyce, Stephen, and Carrie Ann is here, Ingrid, and the list goes on and on and on. So yeah, those were the people who were here very early. I'm sure at 8 o'clock they would have been looking for the door, for the gate to be open. But again, apologies for a 2 minutes delay. Now let me move on to some other stuff. To remind you of Hurricane Melissa relief. Those of you who can make a contribution to our brothers and sisters in Jamaica who are recovering from that devastating hurricane, please do so. And be careful, because there are scammers out there. I wish to again remind you about daylight saving time, where the people in the eastern, well, the entire New York have put back the clock 1 hour. So now the New York Eastern Standard Time is 1 hour behind Guyana, right? So the program starts at 11 o'clock, still New York time, which is 12 o'clock Guyana time. And again, to remind you that November is Diabetes Month, Diabetes Awareness Month. So make sure that you are aware of your numbers. And yesterday, we had Remembrance Day, November the 9th, Remembrance Day. And, some people commented because I explained on the last program, Remembrance Day, and some people say, no, they talk about Veterans Day, and they say, how can I think it should be on the 11th? Well, let me clarify that. Remembrance Day is celebrated or observed in the Commonwealth. Remembrance Day is in honor of the persons who died in the First and Second World War, the Commonwealth citizens. Veterans Day, which is observed on the 11th, tomorrow in the U.S., that has to do with U.S. Veterans, U.S. veterans or U.S. persons who perished in the wars, First World War, Second World War, Korean War, Vietnam War. So it's a difference between Remembrance Day, as we used to call it, Armistice Day or Poppy Day, and Veterans Day. So we understand that. As I said before, Remembrance Day is observed on the Sunday closest to the 10th of November, right? That is Remembrance Day in the Commonwealth. So yesterday, for example, the head of the Commonwealth, King Charles, would have been at the observation there in London, right? We had in Guyana President Ali at the Senate House in Georgetown, and we had representatives in the other regions observing Remembrance Day. So don't get mixed up in Remembrance Day and Veterans Day. They come close, but Veterans Day is observed in the United States in honor of those people who passed away during the World Wars, Korean War, Vietnam War, and so on. A little bit of information as we try to do on this program. We try to educate. Now, let me move on to this. Let me talk about briefly about the dismissal, CC, of the case against police Lance Corporal Christophe de Nabriga, who was charged with murdering Quindon Bacchus. Last week the matter came up, right? And the judge caused the jury to return a formal verdict of not guilty because there was no evidence presented in the High Court. And I saw was Friday and over the weekend people commenting, and they're claiming that the main witness, apparently there was a person who was a special counsel who said at the preliminary inquiry, and then when the time came for her to give evidence in the High Court, we understand she could not be found. She might have migrated. And people were skating in their attack against her, said she must collect money, and all that. And I already explained, let me say this. As we have said on this program, that is one of the dangers of a case relying only and solely on eyewitnesses. A case like this, eyewitness alone could not, in my view, have caused a conviction. Why? Because the evidence came out that Quindon Bacchus was pursued by several police officers, and several police officers shot at Quindon Bacchus. He received, according to the postmortem, 6 bullets to the back or somewhere there, and then 1 to the chest, right? So how do you convict one man without scientific evidence, forensic evidence, to prove that the gun that he had was the gun that caused the fatal wound? How do you do that? So the people, people getting very emotional and they say all this other thing. And we continue to say that these matters, you have to have forensic evidence. You have to have forensic evidence. Because as we have seen, or they're saying in this case, Christophe de Nabriga, what they call the main witness, they say failed to turn up at the High Court, and therefore the matter was dismissed. But again, procedurally, let me understand, that same witness gave evidence at the magistrate court during a preliminary inquiry. Understand this clearly. A preliminary inquiry to determine whether a prima facie case was made out against this accused person. Now, having given our evidence there would have been what we call a deposition. That means the evidence that she gave to the magistrate, when you don't give the evidence, the magistrate has a requirement to read over it to the person, and then the person would have been caused to sign that deposition, and the deposition would have been sent to the director of public prosecutions. So the question is, what is the position, or what was the position with the definition? Because I know provisions are made in certain cases. I don't know if it applied to this case. In the absence of a witness, for depositions to be presented. Because remember, a person might give evidence in at the magistrate court, a preliminary inquiry, and then the person becomes ill. They can't go to court, the High Court. The person dies. You want to suggest to me that the person dies and the case dies with that person? No, you don't operate that way. So a lot of people are emotionally involved in this matter, and they're making all type of statement. But again, I say that is no reason why you have to ensure that a proper and thorough investigation is done. And in cases like these, you want to have forensic evidence. Forensic evidence don't migrate. Forensic evidence don't lose their memory. Because remember, as I'm reminded here by one of the students, when you go before the court on a criminal charge, the prosecution has the burden of proof. They have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. Let me understand this. You have to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. I noted some people blaming the claiming that the defense counsel was unethical in some respect, and all that might be so. But I say this before I begin, Mr. Conway, that the most crucial element in a matter, in any investigation, is the police, the investigators. Because if the investigation is poorly done, you could bring the most brilliant liar. It can be difficult for them to get a conviction. You have to have a proper investigation. And if an investigation such as that one, it requires forensic. Again, I say several persons fired. Several persons, that is what I said. The evidence came out that several persons shot at this fleeing man, right? Who they claim shot back at them. And the evidence showed that that could not have been so because the gun that they say he had was not working. So he could not have shot back at them, right? So you need several persons fired. 6 bullets struck this man to the back, 1 to the front, they claim. You need, first of all, I was shocked when I read a report to say the PM report did not have any evidence that bullets were recovered from the body, from the deceased body during the postmortem. Because one would have expected, unless the bullet can't penetrate and go through and disappear, can't. Because the claim is a 9mm pistol the police had. Can't go through. I mean, if your wingy want to make pass, when you shoot, they say you get shot in the back. Bullet got too large. And then I was shocked when I learned that no bullet was recovered. Because you ought to have ensured recover bullet. And when you recover the bullet, that is where the ballistic people will come in, because they ought to be able to make a match with the bullet found in the body and the gun that the accused person had. So the nexus is there. That is this gun that was fired caused the death of this person. But in the absence of that, how do you convict for murder when you have to prove your case beyond a reasonable doubt? How do you do that? So I say that in matters before the court, is not what you know, not what you suspect, not what you believe, is what evidence you can produce to convince the jury or the magistrate beyond a reasonable doubt that this is the accused person is the person who committed the crime. Yeah, Carl, we have no doubt that he was murdered. I believe he was murdered. But I'm saying that when you get to the court, you have to be able to prove that. You have to be able to prove that. And they were not able to do so. Another case dismissed and a no case submission. So basically what happened there, when the prosecution presented their case and the lawyer for the accused person made a submission saying that no case has been established, the judge agreed. Because then the judge ordered the jury to return a formal verdict of not guilty. So they didn't even have to deliberate. Just say formal verdict, not guilty, that's it, done. And I know people can talk about justice and all of that, but it is important that we understand these things. See?
Yeah, Paul.
Yeah.
The thing is that, person charged, and it's for the prosecution to prove that the person is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, and not for the person to prove that he or she is innocent. You charge somebody, you have to come with your evidence, whether oral, whether you produce documents, whether you produce objects. You gotta come and produce those things to prove your case. And if you can't do that, the case is gonna go down the line. And this one, clearly, it went up to no case submission where they say, this is your case. Defense made submission that there's no case for the client to answer because of blah, 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 blah. And the judge agreed and directed the jury to come up with a not guilty verdict. But as you mentioned, Paul, is that we should have got a lot of forensic evidence there, ballistics. Here's what they're saying, that the man fired them and they returned fire. The pathologist report, 6 bullets, including one in the chest. And you could tell me they won't find out what we call a warhead. I understand they found some spent shells. But if you found spent shells there right at the scene you're not going to find warhead. The other day they found a fragment of a bullet, and trace it to the weapon used by a security guard. a fragment, or a little piece, and trace it. What the sound is was pure cover up. That it's not that they didn't find warrant, but they cover up because they were covering for certain members of the Guyana police force, and therefore the case went overboard. But and then there was no other forensic evidence, nothing to link. And when we talk about forensic is the application of scientific principles in criminal investigation. We get a big forensic science building at the back of the University of Guyana. I know what they're doing. I ain't hearing nothing but it. We had a woman spend about 4 to 5 years in Russia doing forensic science. Came back and she did exceedingly well, and she's now the head of training. Nothing to do with forensic, and she ain't got no training experience. Nothing whatsoever. And then I listened a bit to Millie Mel, with one of the witnesses, and a lot of un- unadulterated hearsay evidence she expressed there, And I didn't know that as part of the evidence in the magistrate court. I don't know that it's true that the witness that the magistrate and others witness we call the locus in court, where the witness said she was in a house, and she peeped and she watched and she saw quite a lot of things that took place. But unfortunately, she wasn't there to give evidence in the Supreme Court. But the whole thing is that police has got to do proper investigation. I know depend upon caution statement and everything. And based on the evidence, I don't know how the guy get charged. I don't know how he get charged. Perhaps it was politics that came into play. And that was a very sad case where the special branch got involved in operational work. And then a day after that, you had Watts, the head of the special branch, leading a team there, dealing with protesters, How in heaven's name special branch get involved? Share the intelligence and let the operational people do the work. Maybe that's why it went haywire. Maybe that's it. But it's sad that, another murder case gone down the drain, gone down the drain at no case submission.
Right, and I see some questions being asked about video evidence and all of that. Let me understand. It is my view, based on what came out, that even if this witness had presented herself to give evidence, even if she had done so, the case would have still gone overboard, because the critical part, in my view, again, is to prove that the gun that Christophe de Nabraga had was the gun that fired fatal shot or shots. And there was no evidence to establish that, as far as I'm aware. Again, several persons ran after this man. Several persons fired. And therefore, the critical part of that investigation, the critical part of that trial, was to prove that the gun that the accused had was the gun that was fired and caused the fatal shot. So they're jumping around, and people don't understand these things, I don't think, but let me understand it. This case had to revolve around forensic evidence. Good, all the eyewitnesses and so on, good, but the thing to put the nail in the coffin, so to speak, would have been the forensic evidence that this gun that was issued to Christophe de Nabriga was the gun that fired the fatal shot to kill Quindon Bacchus. You have to prove that scientifically. And the ballistic people should have been able to do so. And the most crucial part in doing so is that the post-mortem, where you would have recovered the bullets that were lodged in the body. Easy. You'll make that nexus. And the doctor to say, well, is the bullet from this gun caused the death? Then the nexus would have been established. And some people are asking here about reinstatement. Now, well, let me say this, because this is issue in this case. This incident with the killing of this young man, Quindan Bacchus, occurred on the 10th of June, if my memory serves me correct, 10th of June 2022, right? Christophe de Nabrega, Damian McLennan, and Thurston Simon were charged on the 5th of July 2022. De Nabrega for the murder, Simon and McLennan for perverting the course of justice. In addition to that, the DPP recommended that Simon be charged under Section 4Z of the Police Discipline Act, Chapter 17:01. Right? Now, the commissioner, the same one, he was acting at the time, the extended squatter. He took it upon himself to dismiss those persons, dismiss from the force, from the 5th of July 2022. So in other words, he violated the Constitution. He violated those persons' rights because the Constitution guarantees the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. And those policemen were to be presumed innocent. Because no court had convicted them. Up to now, no court has convicted them. But Aiken decided he can dismiss them from the date they appear in court. So the question that is asked now about reinstatement is a very good question. So now that this man get off, Christophe de Nabrega get off, and then now let me go back to say what should have been done is that a person charged and placed before the court, a policeman charged and placed before the court, then they are interdicted from duty pending the outcome of the charge. They are interdicted from duty pending the outcome. Now that we have the outcome with this charge, the murder charge, then there was an expectation that he would have been reinstated because he was found guilty. While he was interdicted, he would have been paid half pay. But they dismissed everybody, so they ain't getting no salary. And now that the Nabrega has been has gotten off as we speak, the question, what now? What now? And here another ridiculous part of this case. 3 men charged on the 5th of July 2022. Christophe de Nabrega for the murder, which is by far the most serious of the offenses, right? Thurston Simon and Damian McLennan charged for perverting the course of justice and some other thing for Thurston Simon, right? Well, he can dismiss Thurston Simon from the 5th. So the disciplinary charge didn't even think about that. Like the DPP recommended under 4Z, which is conduct to the prejudice of good order or discipline. I don't know what the facts would have been. But you have the ridiculous situation now where the murder charge is dismissed and the charge for perverting the course of justice instituted against Simon and McLennan still winding its way through the magistrate court. How more ridiculous can you be? How more ridiculous can you be? Because one would expect now that what they will do is withdraw those charges of perverting the course of justice because the murder charge get dismissed for for lack of evidence. The murder charge is dismissed. So you're going to allow the people to run. And then, of course, the question of reinstatement comes in and so on. And don't forget, don't ever forget that Quindan Bacchus' family brought a civil lawsuit against the government of Guyana for the actions of the policemen who murdered him. They took away his life. The judge awarded the estate of Quindan Bacchus $24 million, right? And the Attorney General, Anil Nandalal, SC, MP, said they're going to appeal the case because he said, well, while they admit liability, he said the money is too much. The money is too much. And the Bacchus estate is fortunate that this decision from the judge came down during the election year. I say that without any fear of contradiction. Because it was in election year 2025, then the president and them said, no, we're going to pay the family the money. We ain't going to appeal. They threw Nandalal under the bus. You got to remember these things, $24 million, right? Well, I guess they believe that $24 million was too much when the indigenous children who lost their lives in the Maja fire were given $5 million. So I guess that is the cost they put to the life of an individual, $5 million. So this $24 million awarded to the Bacchus estate was too much. But we're waiting. I'm going to follow to see what they will do now in terms of the ongoing cases or the case before the magistrate court and the position with the man who get off and the others, right? That is when you have incompetence because those chaps or those ranks should have never been dismissed. Never. It is unconstitutional. It was unconstitutional to have dismissed them in the manner that Aiken did. Be charged and go before the court. That has been happening from time immemorial. Policemen charged, go before the court. The standard thing is that they are interdicted and placed on half pay from the date they appear. And the thing is pending, you're interdicted pending the outcome of the charge, which implies that if the outcome is favorable to you, you're going to be reinstated. Many, many people over the years, they win the case, as we say, they are reinstated. But no, not with this extended incompetence quarter. Dismiss. And I had said since 2022 that those ranks should have taken the matter up to the, bring a lawsuit. Why not going to happen now? And let me say this. Let me say this too before I bring in CC to talk about this part. If the rank that is dismissed is reinstated, he has to be reinstated from the 5th of July 2022. Let me repeat that. If he is reinstated, he has to be reinstated from the 5th of July 2022 when he was unlawfully, unconstitutionally dismissed by Aiken. Right? So let me understand it clearly. Let me hear what Mr. Conway has to say on this. CC, your take, my brother.
There have many issues where ranks have been interdicted, dismissed, and up to now they can't get reinstated. I know one for 11 years, another one for 13 years. And then when they compiling, they decided they're going to reinstate them and give them, when they compiling the benefits, they start changing them. All the various, over the years, all the various increases in allowance and an increase in salary, they're not giving them that. They're not giving them that. And we had cases too, where ranks charged with murder. I think we had a man named Eastman. They rush and they charge him with murder, and he get off, and he's back in the police force, performing some duty some way, someone in the division. I know he got his full benefits. And they had another one, I think he's a traffic man. After about 5 years, I think, for a murder charge, the DPP withdrew the charge. I don't know if he was dismissed or if he's reinstated. I know the position with it. But they need to look at these ranks who are interdicted. In our days, you had interdiction meeting where you kept updated in terms of what was going on there in the cases. Interdiction meeting and in terms of ranks being reinstated. Because if you're not guilty, you got to be reinstated. And I mentioned people 11 years, 13 years, and I also the last count I had, I think it's over 50 policemen before the court on criminal charges. I don't know who's checking on them, as the case may be, but when you win your case, you ought to be interdicted and you get all your full benefits, including all the raises, salary and all the allowances, as the case may be.
Right. I see a comment here from one of the students say they can charge departmentally. No, can't charge departmentally. You might charge your model, get half for the model. What departmental charge you can bring that can stand up? We're going to charge you for departmentally, especially since he was dismissed from the 5th of July 2022. From that date on to now, he's still a civilian. So we're going to charge you to say back then he did breach some standing order or something like that? No. And if that is done, that should challenge that, then they bring it action against the I quote malicious prosecution or something like that. This nonsense must not be allowed to continue. And talking about dismissal of case, we talk about that one because that one was prominent. It had gained national attention. But only last week too, Sean George, who had been indicted for the murder of Michael Scott and the attempted murder of Jimmy Thomas in Caneville, East Bank, Demerara, was acquitted on Thursday, this last week, Thursday, right? And released from custody after the court ruled that the prosecution did not meet the legal burden of proof for conviction. George was represented. He had pleaded not guilty to both charges. Following his submission, Chief Justice Acton directed the 12-member jury to return a formal verdict of not guilty. last week Thursday. And I would think that by now there should be a study, perhaps over the last 10 years, to see the number of cases, murder cases in particular, that have been dismissed on no case submission. That might tell a story. Dismissed several cases, many. I remember a judge remarking that she don't know how come that matter had even reached to the High Court, because there was no evidence at all against the accused person. And then she did say that she was aware of several similar cases where persons were languishing in the jail and they ain't got no evidence against them. Some study should be done, because remember, don't forget that when this investigation is done, the file goes through the system, the commander, the crime chief, to the director of public prosecution's chamber, and it would have been on the recommendation of the DPP that charges are instituted. Once the charge is instituted, it goes through a preliminary inquiry. In other words, a magistrate conducts an inquiry to determine if prima facie case is there. Right? When all of that is done, if the magistrate determines that there's a prima facie case, the deposition, all the documents are sent to the DPP, and the DPP indicts the person to stand trial before one of the sittings in one of the High Court. So you go through all these layers. And when you get to that final layer, well, one of the layers can't final because they could appeal. Once it gets to that layer at the High Court, judges have had to direct juries to return formal verdict of not guilty on the account that there's no evidence to thing. Well, that is where you get happening. Something is wrong, and I say again that if an investigation is faulty, no matter how competent the prosecutors are, it is difficult to get a conviction, because everything revolves around the investigation, the gathering of evidence, whether it's direct evidence, scientific evidence, eyewitness. You got to gather the evidence and gather it properly. So another case dismissed last week didn't get the attention like the Quindenbachers case, but Quindenbachers is not an isolated case. Yeah, an isolated case. And it is sad, because when you look at the family of the deceased, they believe that they did not get justice. The society believe that they did not get justice. And it's a worrying thing. And this is not this is saying that you have to look at the system. It seems that the problem is systemic. Lack of proper investigation, and that's it. That's it. Once the matter is investigated properly, it's trouble thereafter. Trouble thereafter. Let me move on. Let me move on. Somebody asked about the Mr. Brutus matter. That is a mystery to be solved. That is a mystery to be solved, right? Let me, we say over and over, let me see how we're going for time. We say over and over on this program, the name of the program is Speaking Out, Exposing Corruption, Incompetence. And almost on a daily basis, you see the incompetence of people in government, you see the incompetence of people elsewhere, the police force included. We learned some time ago that following the death of this unfortunate death of Nabendra Mahes, this 15-year-old schoolboy who was struck and killed on the pedestrian crossing on the East Coast. Remember that matter not so long ago? Right? Just about 2 weeks ago. The young boy crossing the road on a pedestrian crossing. And a car driven by a policewoman struck and killed him. She charged with causing death by dangerous driving. I know the parents, very upset, very emotional, understandably so, came out and people making us other statement and so on. The traffic chief, let me pull up the document here. The traffic chief, Assistant Commissioner Mahendra Singh. One more, bear with me a minute. Let me pull it up. You know what? I don't want to ad-lib and misquote them, The traffic chief, Mahendra Singh. This is an article published on the 31st of October. East Coast rush hour third lane discontinued, traffic chief. That discontinued following this death of this 15-year-old. And the other death the week before, motorcyclist. A rush hour traffic remedy, which saw the insertion of an improvised third lane on the east coast of Demerara, has been discontinued with immediate effect in the wake of yesterday's tragic fatality. Traffic Chief Assistant Commissioner Mahendra Singh announced yesterday, by way of a police press release, that the use of the third lane along the east coast of Demerara is discontinued. Singh explained that according to road traffic engineering principles, the roadway is designed to accommodate only 2 lanes of traffic in each direction. He emphasized that returning to the original design will help improve stability in traffic flow and reduce the possibility of another incident that may take another life. They're using this word regularly. That is no incident. That was a fatal accident, right? That was a fatal accident. That is Mahendra Singh, Counter Stabrook News, on the 31st of October. And you might not be surprised to know that we have last week, rush hour third lane returns on the East Bank and East Coast. Police to crack down on overtaking drivers. This is more evidence that these people don't know what they are about. So the traffic chief come out and immediately discontinue the third lane on the East Coast. Because what he says, what is the reason for the discontinuation? According to what is reported in the Stabrook News. He explained that according to the road traffic engineering principles, the roadway is designed to accommodate only 2 lanes in each direction. He emphasized that returning to the original design will help improve stability in the traffic flow and reduce the possibility of another incident that may take another life. Well, my folks, they reversed that. So is it that the engineering principles have changed? Is it that the engineering principles have changed? So here what it says, the third lane traffic system originally recommended, officially recommenced Thursday morning along the East Bank, this last Thursday, on East Coast of Demerara corridors, marking a return to one of the country's most debated rush hour traffic measures, but this time under police and stricter controls. Police Commissioner Clifton Aiken, Traffic Chief Mahendra Singh, and other senior ranks were early Thursday morning out early Thursday morning to observe the re-implementation, which aims to ease the congestion during peak hours. The third lane, introduced years ago to facilitate smoother traffic flow during rush hours, was suspended last week following several fatal accidents, including the death of 15-year-old Annandale school student Navindra Mahes, who was struck on a pedestrian crossing at Success East Coast Demerara while the system was in effect. Speaking to Newsroom during Thursday morning exercise, Traffic Chief Singh said the reinstatement comes after a detailed review and analysis led by the Commissioner of Police himself. He emphasized that safety considerations and an evolving road network across Demerara guided the decision. Quote, this initiative arose out of necessity years ago, before the Mandela Avenue to Eccles Link, E-Rose Highway, and other bypass roads were built, end of quote, Singh explained. With, quote, with those new infrastructures now in place, Greenfield, Red Road, Ogle Bypass, Diamond to Bosby Dam, we have to re-examine our traffic flow and restore normal 2-lane operations where possible, end of quote. But either you said knee jerk, is that knee jerk alone? There's not knee jerk alone, there's other jerk. That is other jerk. Only a week ago, this man tell people that the road and design for this 3-lane thing, right? He then designed for the 3-lane. And then now, a week after, the 3-lane is going to be reintroduced. It shows that these people don't have a clue of what is going on. They don't have a clue. And watch this. Last week, Thursday, for the reinstatement or the re-implementation of this thing, lot. What you have here? The commissioner, in case you all recognize, is the shortest one there, right? You have a deputy commissioner, Mark Bean. You have an assistant commissioner, the same thing. You have a superintendent, I guess he's the deputy traffic chief, and the next junior officer there. 5 police officers to re-implement this third lane. Waste of time. What happened to the traffic chief? If the traffic chief is so incompetent that he can't manage something like this, why have him there? Why have him there? This is all about photo opportunity. This is all about photo opportunity. Right here, Umi, photo opportunity. The guy out there posing for pictures. May I blame can you got blame because the other officers would have gone there because he would have summoned them to be there. And the police force being a disciplined job, you can't tell you no. Can't tell you no, you ain't going. So they went to be part of the decoration, part of the photo opportunity. Right? And that is part of the problem. That is part of the problem. Then you know, all in press conferences to interact with the media. You don't get no proper interview. But when it comes to photo opportunity, oh man, that's what I like. So you're going to village, you get camera take out, so you're interacting with vigilance. You stand up and you talk to a couple drivers and so on. That is lectures to the drivers. And that is what is going on. Nothing substantive. Nothing substantive. And let me tell you this, I was traffic chief on 2 occasions. There is no way when I was traffic chief, Larry Lewis was commissioner, that Larry Lewis getting involved in something like that. If you go to Larry Lewis, a problem like that, Larry Lewis will take out his shot and take his Bobby. I said, come, you want to talk Bobby. That's you work, you go and do your work. He did that to at least one officer that I know. You can't go to Larry Lewis with problems like that. When I introduced the law and driver system and other systems and so on, I had to go and make a presentation to the commissioner and the other senior officers to convince them that this thing can work. Properly thought out presentation had to be done. What we get now? Traffic chief come out with a knee-jerk thing. Oh, we discontinue because the road and design for them. And then 1 week after, oh, we re-implementing. So apparently they have changed the design of the road in that 1 week period. In that 1 week period, the design for the road was changed. So we can now bring back the third lane traffic. It shows incompetence. It shows that people don't know what they're about. And before I bring in Mr. Conway to talk about this, let me say this. I know that the mother, I saw the mother on a video, on a social media outside the court, the mother of Maes, Navinja Maes, very distraught, and understandably so, about the policewoman being put on bail and all that. Well, there's nothing wrong with the policewoman or anybody put on bail, but I know the emotions were high. But I want to say to you, madam, while I sympathize with you and I understand all that you are going through, you may need to consult with a lawyer. You may need to consult with a lawyer. Hear me clearly. Because I believe for that ad hoc arrangement they had that wasn't properly managed, the state must bear responsibility. Because here it is, they convert this lane to go against what, according to the traffic chief, it was designed for, causing the death of your son. I believe the state holds responsibility. So they're going to come to you and maybe they promise, and they think this Saturday the boy might have, sometime recently he was cremated, and they're going to come and they're going to offer you that. Go and get a lawyer. Go and get a lawyer. Because if the state put this traffic on this other lane, and the most important thing is that the third lane in itself is that it was not managed properly. It was not managed. There were no signs. There were no police ranks to make sure that people knew what was going on. None whatsoever. And for that reason, I believe that they can be held liable for that reason alone. Because you can't do something like that and not have adequate notice and warning to the average public. You can't assume, and that has to be ongoing. The warning and the notification has to be an ongoing process. So let's understand it. Let me bring in Mr. Conway to talk about this. Then we're going to move to something else. CC, your take, me brother.
Well, knee-jerk reaction. And I say over and over again that the police are not strategic. I once told the confirmed squatter, I say, hey, Clifton, you may be tactical, but you're not strategic. Hey, see what I mean? What I mean, man? I say you're dealing with now. You're not looking at the future. You're not projecting. You're dealing with now. And I say you get where you are calling a strategic management plan for the Guyana Police Force 2020, 2022 to 2026. You're going to finish next year. I know it's next year, January or February or when. And they have not achieved a single milestone. They cut and paste from Capital Simmons. Nothing wrong with that. But they're not achieving anything. That they get what they call a strategic plan, and the executive leadership team can't tell about it. The divisional commanders can't tell about it. The sub-unit officers can't tell about it. The station sergeants can't tell about it. The SOs in charge section can't tell about it. The constables can't tell about it. And the type of partnership and their partners can't tell you about it. So barely, it manifests in itself. Knee-jerk reaction. Knee-jerk reaction. They must deal with now. They deal with now, and that's it. They're not looking into the future. The plan 2022, 2026, we have a strategic plan. Ask if they achieve any milestone, ask if they pass any milestone. And all they're doing is just, yesterday it rang, today it right, without any reasoning, without no analytical work. Huh? Just how they operating. A set of wildness playing out. A set of wildness playing out. And a saying that the police force is not strategic. It is not strategic. Therefore, all kind of things will happen and will continue to happen.
Now, as you would say in the country, you said a while, in the country where I grew up, they would say they like buckbead. They like Edda Bush. Buckbead, what is buckbead? I mean, and the younger people might not know. Buckbead, growing wild all over the place, right? And then you have Edo Bush, wild. And there's the wild Edo, we take him out. Not the proper Edo that you just eat, because the one, you could take the leaf and make Edo Baji. I grew up in the country and know these things. But them the wild, you can't use them. Wild. And let me move to the next issue. Yeah, share the life. We have over 2,000 viewers. We got to go up, share the life. We're going to talk now about all this going on with the Mohammeds and so on. Share the life. People want to hear this. We started it on Friday. On Thursday, at the press conference, if you can call it that, I call it, according to Mighty Duke, Inidan Chimakumi, right? Bacchanal in the tongue. Bacchanal, right? Woman Bacchanal is the name of the song. I call it that. Yeah, call it, some people call it press conference. Hey, what transpired, if you remember? Let me refresh you quickly. Jack Dio, the vice president, said that, well, let me start a little further back. Last Monday, when they had the convening of the National Assembly, right? The 13th Parliament, not National Assembly, Parliament. Asadin Mohammed, the leader of the We Invest in Nationhood Party, the largest opposition bloc, turned up at the Arthur Chung Convention Center in the controversial Lamborghini motor car. All the story behind the Lamborghini, we're going to deal with it now. He turned up with that. And then he's reported as saying he turned up with it so that Jack Dio could see. Right? So that Jack Dio could see. Thursday press conference, Jack Dio, and this is what AHGP News, Nightly News said. Vice President Dr. Barrett Jack Dio has laid the blame squarely at the feet of Police Commissioner Clifton Ikin, declaring that he will be held personally responsible for allowing Azuddin Mohammed uninsured Lamborghini to be driven on public roads. Speaking at his weekly press conference on Thursday, Jack Dio issued a stern warning to the top cop following public outrage over Mohammed's dramatic arrival at the opening of the 13th Parliament in the same luxury vehicle that is now the subject of ongoing tax evasion case. Jack Dio says so on Thursday. And we say that this is a dog whistle. It's a dog whistle. Akin heard the frequency of one of the whistles. Frequency of one of the whistles. So here what is reported here now. Here what is reporting. That is Jack Doe making a statement Thursday. On Friday, it has been reported now, Ranks trailed Mohammed's wife to impound vehicle after Jack Doe blames Akin for Lamborghini stunt at Parliament. One day after Guyana's Vice President Barra Jack Doe at his weekly press conference blamed the Commissioner of Police Clifton Akin for allowing the We Invest in Nationhood leader Ashuddin Mohammed for pulling up to Parliament in an uninsured Lamborghini. The police force is now going after all of his vehicles. On Friday, police ranks reportedly drove behind his wife after she dropped their children into school in one of the Mohammed's vehicles and stopped her. She was instructed to drive to the police station where she was held for some 2 hours. After searching the vehicle, she was charged for driving an uninsured motor vehicle, obscure number plate, and other traffic offenses. Her court date was set for Wednesday, but police did not stop there. Ranks also held on to a driver who was sent to pick her up from the police station and charge him for tint and obscure number plate. We understand that the force is now on the lookout for other vehicles owned by the Mohammeds. Information reaching Kaito News is that the insurance companies have cut ties with the Mohammeds due to the OFAC sanction. However, the Win Party leader is alleging high-ranking government officials had instructed the companies through middlemen to stop doing business with the Mohammeds because they are sanctioned. So I'll give you all a background there. Give you all a background. So as we say, what happened? First of all, let me say this. I all know brief for the Mohammeds, none of them. And I believe that for Ashuddin Mohammed or any one of the Mohammeds to be driving a vehicle or any vehicle on the road that is uninsured shows a total disregard for the laws. It shows a total disregard. It shows contempt. It shows arrogance. That is my belief. Because the vehicle and get insurance, you should not drive it on the road. But having said that, the police have to carry out the action in a lawful manner. And I'm saying this to you, that the manner in which they dealt with this vehicle on Friday is unlawful, totally unlawful, and I will explain. As I've said before, when we come on this program, we don't just make statements. We go to the law and we explain. Again, let me repeat that. Ashuddin Mohammed and his father and his family members show total disregard for the law, social contempt for the laws of Guyana, shows a level of arrogance that should not be tolerated. But it can wait until Jack Dioga will tell you that he can only personally responsible for turning the police to trail the vehicle driven by his wife and then impound the vehicle, something that they have absolutely no authority to do, absolutely none. Now let me explain. Insurance. We talked about it on Friday. And then there was a debate as to whether it's 5 days or 3 days. You know, people say as to the how long you have. Well, I did the research as I would normally do. And it is let me tell them, sing the traffic chief and the king and them, because they don't read. So when they get a political dog whistle from Jack D or anybody else, they just run. They not check to see what the law says and what they should do. So they hear the dog whistle about uninsured vehicles driving on the road. They follow the vehicle out of the place and they pull them in. Dealing with insurance. And they're going to deal with the other offenses. Motor Vehicle Insurance Third Party Risk Act, Chapter 51:03, Section 6(1), right? Any person driving a motor vehicle on a public road shall, on being required by a member of the force, give his name and address, and the name and address of the owner of the motor vehicle, and produce his certificate. And if he fails to do so, he shall be guilty of an offense. Provided that if the driver of the motor vehicle within 5 days after the date on which the production of the certificate was so required, produce the certificate in person at such a police station as he may have been specified by him at the time his production was required, he shall not be convicted under this section of the offense for failing to produce his certificate of fitness. So what happened? What are you saying? As we had debated, we weren't certain whether it's true. The law is saying that if a policeman stop you on the road and make a demand for your insurance, you don't have to have it with you, but you have 5 days to produce it. And as we had said, you produce it according to what the law said. Let me read about to produce the certificate. He say, produce the certificate in person at such police station as he may have been specified by him. May have been specified by him. He talking about the person, the owner of the vehicle, at the time of its production was required. So if you stop and you say, look, they say, well, look, I ain't got my certificate. I can produce it at Blaymont Police Station. I can produce it at Regina Police Station. That is what the law caters for. That is the you can't arrest a person. You cannot. The law does not allow that. But these jokers that we have, well, I'm blaming the junior ranks per se, It's them people in position, like the traffic chief and the commissioner them. Because the trailing of that vehicle on Friday and the impounding of the vehicle would have required instructions. When they hear Jack Dio blow the whistle, they shit the pants. Especially when Jack Dio, he can hood up on a tender leash. Past the retirement age and sitting down there. When Jack Dio say, I can only personally responsible, oh God, toilet paper time. Toilet paper time. Jack Dio say, I can all, he can personally responsible. Toilet paper time. Now let me tell you what happened here. See, I can get a little batin just now. I can get a little batin. Hey, what happened here? We know the Mohammeds were sanctioned by the US. Right? Sanctioned by the US. We know too, now once they were sanctioned, the financial institutions in Guyana severed ties with them. They cut ties with them. So they ain't got no account at any bank. They don't have any insurance because an insurance company, all the insurance companies are regarded as financial institutions. So even, I'm sure they would have had insurance, or they may have had insurance, but because of this sanction, the people would have revoked the certificate of insurance, cut business with them, no longer cover them, right? All right. So that would have been the action. Now, once that was done, those vehicles got to be parked. You can't drive the vehicles on the road. And they got enough money so they could have hired car or taxi, whatever you want, for come and pick them up and carry them where they want to take them. But to be driving those vehicles and say carry your children to school and so on is totally unacceptable. But that is the lawlessness that they grew up with the PPP. When they were in the PPP, nothing would happen. When they were supporting the PPP, nothing would have happened because they were part and parcel of this corrupt cabal, right? But now that they run afoul, or they're alleged to have run afoul of the US and all the things, PPP coming hard. And since Azuddin Mohammed wanted to be a politician, it's more pressure. And let me say this to you, Mr. Mohammed. You want to be a politician, you want to be the leader of the opposition, you might even want to think you're going to be president. You can't operate like if you're above the law. Cannot. And your family members cannot operate as if they are above the law. Let's understand this clearly. Now, all right, the vehicle is taken into the police. They say at where the old CID headquarters been. I didn't even know that is where Breakdown operating from now. And what they do, they say they search the vehicle and then they impound the vehicle. On what grounds? You say you impound. In that case where you say, well, you find drugs or you find guns and all that other thing illegal, you are impounding the vehicle according to what they say because the vehicle get tint. The vehicle get obscure number plate. You have absolutely no legal authority to do so. What should happen? Police listen. Members of the public listen and be educated. If it is that the vehicle went there and a licensing and certifying officer, not any rank and run-of-the-mill police, a licensing and certifying officer, and I don't think they have licensing and certifying officer at that place, because when I checked, the Breakdown traffic office is located at Rhineveld. So unless they took a licensing and certifying officer from Rhineveld, took him to Evelary, to deal with this matter. The licensing and certifying officer should conduct an inspection of the vehicle. And if the vehicle is found to be in violation, it get tint with no permit, it get obscure number plate, the action is to revoke the fitness to the vehicle. You can't impound vehicle. You revoke the fitness. You serve a defect sheet on the driver for them to fix the defect. Now, hear this part. Hear this part. Once the fitness of the vehicle is revoked, of course, you got to tell them why it is revoked. Once the fitness is revoked, then the vehicle cannot drive out of the compound. Because the vehicle has no certificate of fitness, has no, it cannot drive. But again, you can't impound. The owner, if he or she wants, can have a tow truck come and tow the vehicle to any place that they want it to go. Or they can bring a low bed and put the vehicle and carry it to wherever they want to take it. In other words, it can't drive on the road. But you cannot impound the vehicle for that. Even if it got police lights, Ral, or whoever, even if it got police lights, that is reason for impound. There is a vehicle for revoke the fitness of the vehicle. Revoke the fitness of the vehicle, and once it is revoked, you serve them the defect sheet. They got to fix it. It can't drive. I have had that experience several times when I was traffic chief. You revoke the fitness. Sometimes you used to revoke it for them and them big boom boxes. You revoke the fitness. And then they're going to tell you, say, well, they're going to bring something to pull it. You could bring something, but it has to be an authorized tow vehicle. I ain't allowing no other car or minibus or thing to pull it out. Has to be an authorized tow vehicle to pull it. Or you can put it on a low bed and take it wherever you want to take it. The point is, you have no legal authority to impound it. None whatsoever. None. I'm going to talk something more on this issue. Let me bring in CC for him to have his say. CC, have a go, man. Have a go.
Yeah, I agree with you, And the role of the licensing and certifying officer is critical. That's the person that got to deal with it. I get a little constable bringing the vehicle and say, hey, I bring in this vehicle, let's stay till I come back and them kind of thing, That it is a license and certifying officer has got to revoke that fitness. And as you mentioned, yes, the owner can come and put certain systems in place so that it can be taken away. Otherwise, so that police would be wrong if they just keep the vehicle there all the time.
Now, I see, again, let me respond to certain things. Because I say it had police lights. What is police light? What are police lights, whatever you want to say? It has lights similar to what the police have. And look, let me tell you something. This thing is so galling because enough businessmen, enough PPP supporters, all of them get red light, siren, and thing in the vehicle. Illegal. The law is clear. Those things are meant for emergency vehicles. And the law defines emergency vehicles as police vehicles, ambulances, and fire service vehicles. That's what the law said. No other vehicle, none, not authorized to have those lights and siren and all them type of thing. And I see people complaining frequently in the media and so on that look, you're going down the road and then the next thing you see some vehicle coming, wah, 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 and light flashing. You don't know if it's police, you don't know who the people are. Many cases it's business people or people called business or some ordinary private citizens coming down the road. They install these things in the vehicle and you got to take bush. You got to go off and take them. I know something about that. Let me say that because even with the police, the rule of the road is clear. I think it's section 40 or some 44, something like that. You have to drive on the left or near side. The police vehicle, many times, they're coming down with siren. Legitimate police vehicles with siren coming. Buddy, let me advise you. If you're a driver, don't just pull to the left side. Because sometimes it's like the side they're attempting to pass you. When they should overtake on the right side. You hear a siren? Let me give you some good advice. When you hear a siren, you should pull over. But you got to pull to the left side. But make sure that is not the side the vehicle is attempting to pass. Because I have seen on many occasions, they're coming and they all seem to pass you on the wrong side. So if when you hear this siren, you pull to the left side, where they are attempting to pass because they're coming at speed, in many cases, it's a big accident you're going to get. Big accident. You should pull to the left and they should pass on the right. But that don't happen. That don't happen. Right? So it's a whole set of confusion in the place. And let me say this. And again, this is not easy to this is not difficult to detect. Look at some of the vehicles going around the place with siren, even police vehicles, policemen and women who vehicle, flashing light and siren, dark tint, obscure number plate, and all this type of thing. What they're doing. I saw over the weekend, Leroy Smith put up some there to show you the ones that were vehicle pulled in for obscure number plate and show you the number plate of the vehicles, far more obscure than the ones that they pulled in. You have to lead by example. You got to lead by example. And if y'all are going after the Mohammeds, again, I say, I only brief for the Mohammeds because my story is, it is total lawlessness to know that you can't get insurance and you're driving for your vehicle and still driving them on the road. That's a total disregard for the laws of the land, right? What happened to the other sanctioned people like Mae Thomas, who would have had, I believe she would have suffered the same fate in terms of having the banks and insurance companies disassociate themselves with her. Is she suffering the same fate? That she get a vehicle that can be driven on the road? Or y'all are looking for that? What about the police officer Emnat Sar, who too is sanctioned as a drug trafficker? Is he getting paid through the banks? How is he being paid? And even if he's not being paid through the bank, the mere fact that you're paying him, isn't it that you're doing business with a sanctioned person? I gotta ask these questions. You have other people who were sanctioned. What is the position with them? What is the position? You single out the Mohammed because of politics. You have singled out the Mohammed. Don't matter you jump or you deny that. You single out the Mohammed because Mohammed is a politician. If he had remained an ordinary citizen, ordinary in brackets, all this would not come down. But you all see him as an upstart. He wants to get political power. Counter Jagdeo, he believes that being in the opposition can absolve him or remove the charges. That's the other thing to say. Mohammed lived rent-free in their head. Mohammed, also did Mohammed in particular. What happened to Mae Thomas and all of those persons? What happened to other people who were sanctioned? Y'all care to tell us about that? As I've said, even when you come down to the same motor vehicle in 5 days, yeah, and they have other thing in the same section 6, it's 1 to 4 of the Motor Vehicle Insurance Third Party Risk Act. Learn it, traffic chief. Read it, commissioner, and understand that you can't. A person has 5 days from the time the demand is made. That would have been Friday. They got 5 days to produce a certificate of insurance. So you charge the wife to go to court on Wednesday, right? You charge your wife to go to court on Wednesday. And that is why these cases, because when the time come, I'm sure some like I make the thing. Can we tell you Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Wednesday is 5 days. I don't know if they come Saturday and Sunday. When they produce it within the 5 days, then you can take action. That is what the law requires. You must comply with the law. As I've said repeatedly before, you cannot break the law to enforce the law. The law is there. Many times, as a senior police officer, you feel that the law is too restrictive. And what you got to do? You got to advocate for it to be changed, for amendments to be made. You can't make your own law. That is the sole preserve of Parliament. That branch of government, Parliament. Not you sitting down there in your ivory tower and decide because Jagdeo blow the whistle. But talking about blowing the whistle, having regard to the statement made by Jagdeo, I said earlier that let me pull it up here. I said that Jagdeo said Yolin Ikin personally responsible for allowing Azadin Mohammed uninsured Lamborghini. So y'all move on that. But in this statement by Jack Dew, you hear one frequency. There's another frequency. You heard the frequency about the Lamborghini. But what about the frequency about holding you accountable and decide that you got to go home? You don't think about that? Because you look like you fed up. You know, they said use and dash way. Use and dash way. You know, they get many items and articles where you use and you dash way. So they use you. They can no reuse there, right? They use you, they dash way. It's time Jack Dew must decide for you to catch your distance. So you can come out publicly Thursday and make a statement like this. That is not only the police force, he's only the commissioner personally responsible for allowing the Lamborghini. And maybe because it is alleged that you drove in it on one, at least one occasion. Right? Yeah, right. Somebody said reading might not be a favorite subject of this. And it's true. But get people to advise you, man. Get people to advise you. At least you can quietly call the vice president. That's all. We can't impound the vehicle. Because let me digress. Let me move on to say this. You know, if you got a blowback about the impounding of the vehicle, you know what they're gonna say? You know what they're gonna say? Well, we never told them to impound the vehicle. We told them, well, they even tell them nothing. They know better. Mr. Conway does always tell me about the statement of Gadraj in the COI with McDonald and all them things. He just tell you what Gadraj threw McDonald under the bus. That is what I'm going to say, that we did not tell him to break the law. We did not tell him that. We told him nothing. We just, the president made a statement, even though we know that was a dog whistle and it can run out. You heard that frequency of the whistle. But again, not a frequency. Maybe higher pitch or low pitch. I'm not sure which say that maybe they're fed up with you. It's about time, because incompetence and all what's going on in the police force with all this sex scandal and all this out there. This police force has never been so scandal prone as since you can take over them. Brutus 252 criminal charges. You get all sort of other things, policemen, the Linden story, men getting killed, police charged with murder. You get the story at Region 1 where police couple there with some 15-year-old girl. You get the commander being investigated for fraud. What happened to that? What happened to that one? You get a training institution, big stinking allegation of sexual abuse and all them type of thing. You get your big, all them thing going on, all them thing under you, all them thing going on. And the policemen, apart from the time when McDonald was there, a lot of policemen dying now, more than any other time that I can recall. And you know, one of my favorite commissioners made a statement some time ago, many years ago, referring to Henry Green. When Henry Green, they licking down Wilson Felix, he wanted the office. He said, Green is going to get what he wants. That is the commissioner work. He wants the commissioner work. And he said, Green is going to get what he wants, but he might not want what he get. Let me repeat that. So he might get what he wants. So you wanted the commissioner work, you undermine RP and all them, you get the work, but you might not want what you get. So now everything coming at you. Everything coming at you. If you can be embarrassed, you are for embarrass you. If you can be embarrassed. If you can be. Let me move on. Let me before we want to bring in CC to make his comment on this. CC?
Yeah, dog whistle. And as you indicated, you know, won't be surprised if they tell Commissioner Hicken should have been guided by the Constitution and its conscience. Commissioner Hicken should have been guided by the Constitution and its conscience. Full stop. End of the matter.
Yeah, you got to show this. Like we know the Constitution, and somebody asking the question, why he had to hold, why the vice president had to hold, Hicken, the commissioner, personally responsible, and not the traffic chief. You got to ask Jack Dew that. I don't know. You got to ask that. But that is what, and here again, as I've said, A next clear case of the government, members of the government, interfering and giving instruction into the management of the force. They would deny it. But how else can you interpret that statement from Jagdeo? How else? This is not a case of the man pick up a phone and shout and say, hey, this. The man publicly, as his press conference, so-called press conference, said he only became personally responsible. The only became personally responsible. And that is what you have. A lot of wrong. Again, I strongly believe that they didn't know what action to take. They get told about the vehicle being uninsured on the road. They don't know what is the correct police action to take. So this bullying thing, wrong and strong, impound the vehicle. When you have no legal authority to do so. No legal authority. But you impound it because you know you're going to get back in from the government, and that is what they want. For sure, for belittle or for thing the moments. That is what they want. That is what, you know that is what they want, and therefore you do that. Regardless of whether it's legal or not, you do that. Right? Crisis, right? Now let me move on. I'm sure many of you are anxious to know, when when Mohammed appeared in court, he was arrested on the last day, I think it was Friday 31st, and taken to court, and then he was placed on bail. Big nice, because I maintain that the government never expected him to be granted bail. They said so. They have said so. Sanjeev Dattadin, Jagdeo, all them said that they didn't expect him to get bail. So therefore, they didn't expect him to be in Parliament last Monday to be sworn in as a member of Parliament. And then what happens? 1 week gone, you ain't hear about the meeting to elect the leader of the opposition. That's going to drag out too. That is going to drag out because they get Mansour Nadir returned there. Mansour Nadir, as I showed you, let me see if I can pull up the picture. Mansour Nadir, who is the speaker, the Mansour Nadir is speaker. Hold on. Look, Mansour Nadir is speaker at one of the PPP rallies in the lead up to this September 1st election. Show his colors. Man got on his red polo shirt, right? Get on his red polo shirt. Red polo shirt. And then he told us last Monday about the times he served as a member of parliament, the time he served as a minister of the government. Right? He tell you all that. He didn't tell you that he was the leader of a political party. The party formed by Peter de Geer, United Force. And then he changed the name to the United Force. And then the whole party collapsed. Even the building that the party had, that building opposite GCC border, Shiv Chandapal Drive, right? A corner of Shiv Chandapal and Rob Street. There what to it. And then I learned that the party might have been handed over, the leadership of the party might have been handed over to a family member, right? Family. So I know there was some democratic process. I don't know, right? And then why I told you too, I remember that very well. He was also either the president, I think was the president of the Minibus and I-Car Drivers Association. Minibus and I-Car Drivers Association, because when I was the traffic chief and we were looking at this tint arrangement, he was the man with whom I interacted. He represented the Minibus and I-Car Association. The man got a lot of stripes, man. The man got a lot of stripes, right? So we don't know when the meeting is going to be called to elect a leader of the opposition. And then they jump out, and one of them right to say that it is not unprecedented, the 7 on 2 occasions before. But one of his students who know these things, he said in 2015, once the coalition came to power, the PPP stayed away from parliament for 6 weeks. So therefore, the leader of the opposition could not have been elected then. And when they reappeared, or when they went to parliament, the first day that they went to parliament, Bharat Jagdeo was elected as the leader of the opposition. He said in 2020, when the PPP was installed into the office, right? They had a long delay, and then eventually when Parliament convened, the first day that they went to Parliament, Joe Armand was elected as the leader of the opposition. So this thing where they tell you about 1 month and all them type of thing, they're just gaslighting you. You got to check these things for yourself. Come here, we're going to give you the facts. And you know they say facts are stubborn things. Ain't going nowhere. Facts are stubborn things. Now, so as we did went to court, and based on their own utterances, they never expected him to get bail. So Jack D was attacking the magistrate. But I have to ask the question as we think, who brought her there? Well, nonetheless, that is the judiciary does do it. They ain't got nothing to do with the government. I had a good laugh. So the magistrate was taken from the Diamond Magistrate Court. Big thing last week, Friday, and brought to the Georgetown Magistrate Court, 7, to air first of all, an application for an arrest warrant, which was granted, and then they moved on the arrest Asudin and his father, took him there, and then the question of bail came in, and the magistrate, to their surprise, granted bail in the sum of $150,000. Jack Dio blaming the magistrate even for that. Guy said, I know that if it's before, which is true, if it's more than $200,000, you can't pay cash. You got to get some manager's check. And if Friday afternoon, them order, you're not likely to get the manager's check. So they're implying that the magistrate deliberately set the bail at an amount where cash can be accepted by the court. That is what they're saying, not me. Not me, that is what they say. So they never expected him to get bail, right? So what happened? When he appeared then, the matter was put off to this morning. This morning, the 10th day of November in the court. We learned this morning that when they went there, let me read what it said. When they went there this morning, the magistrate, the matter is further postponed to the 24th of this month. Because this morning we understand that they went there for disclosure. Full disclosure. We understand there was partial disclosure. Well, we understand, student, what disclosure is. You have a case before the court, they have to then, the prosecution has to present to the defense all the evidence they intend to use during the trial, all the evidence. All. My understanding, and I'm going to read some things to you just now. My understanding this morning, I went there, they presented some formal stuff, like the requests from the US and all of that, right? That is what they presented, some formal stuff. They didn't present the real evidence. So they have asked the lawyers representing the state, the 3 Jamaicans, and now we hear they add another lawyer in the form of Glenn Anneman. But interestingly, I learned this a while ago, that the lawyers from Jamaica are representing the United States, which is not surprising, because remember the United States requesting the extradition. I see questions asked about who paying them and whether they stay. I think suggestions are made. I felt the same way too, until I read an article this morning which is saying that they are representing the United States, who has made the request for this extradition. So the 3 Jamaicans, and now that they are joined by attorney Glenn Anneman, I wonder who paying all this for Glenn Anneman if he joined the U.S. team. And it says here, let me read it quickly, not that long. The matter against the Mohammeds has been adjourned until October the 24th at 9 a.m. after the 3 Jamaican prosecutors visiting our shores appeared unprepared. Now, this is not the one I want to read. There's another one. There's another one that I want to read. Oh, bear with me. Well, they got 2, you know. They got one from Dennis Shriball, and there's one from Gordon Mosley. The one from Dennis Shriball, the Wave, say United States the United States hired lawyers on Monday did not disclose to Azzuddin and Azhar Mohammed's lawyers the fugitives allegedly linked to Venezuela and the Middle East, according to the attorney Rizal Ford. Absolutely none. They didn't produce no evidence at all. Mr. Ford, who's a member of the Mohammed's defense team, told reporters that when asked by Deborah Waves online news whether he saw any documents from the U.S. lawyers linking the Mohammeds to Venezuela and the Middle East, during the U.S. lawyers' unsuccessful opposition to bail on October 31st, 2025, the U.S. hired legal team had alleged that the Mohammeds, quote, engaged in an international criminal enterprise with tentacles stretching to high offices in Venezuela and through the U.S. to the Middle East. The lawyer, Terrence Williams, had said that the U.S. had information that the Mohammeds had property in Brazil and were in contact with Venezuelan officials, and so they could flee to Venezuela and continue their unlawful enterprise. That is the argument he made in trying to get bail refused. But then there was no evidence, none. And one had expected that when the matter came up this morning in the court there for disclosure, they would have disclosed all the evidence that they have, so the lawyers representing the Mohammeds can prepare their case. But they're saying that they did not present anything. And so therefore, the matter is now put off to the 24th. But let me say this again. To me, this is more evidence that the timing of the arrest, the timing of this extradition proceedings was aimed to ensure that Azzuddin Mohammed got to Parliament on the 3rd of this month. Clear evidence. The evidence is there. So now that he has gotten past that, now that he's a member of Parliament, there's no longer any rush for this extradition proceedings to commence. The real proceedings, not the formality, not the formal thing where you now give according to what they're reporting, that the evidence that was turned over relates to the requests from the U.S., from the U.S. government for the extradition. But that's not what the lawyers really want. You got to see what the evidence in relation to the allegations of this criminal conduct, the criminal enterprise. That is what they want to see, and that is what you have an obligation to present. Full disclosure, they call it. You have to disclose. I remember, CC, in our case, remember when we were charged to conspiracy to commit fraud? They did the disclosure, and then 1 year or something after that, when the trial started, as issues came up in the court, then they were making applications for additional disclosure. And the magistrate rejected it. And they sued the magistrate. Soku sued the magistrate because the magistrate said she was not going to allow additional disclosure after all of these things. So they were playing by ear. When the defense counsel raised certain issues, why we haven't seen this? They permission now to have it brought in as evidence. Magistrate said no. No, they ain't working so. So they have a legal responsibility to present all the evidence that they're going to use against the Mohammed to the defense of the Mohammed. So they can go through the evidence and they can present or they can prepare a proper case. That wasn't done today. That was not done. So it would appear that there's no longer any urgency to have this extradition proceedings proceeded with some amount of alacrity. And it's on them. It's on the prosecutors. These U.S. hired prosecutors are now Ben Anamon. I thought Ben Anamon was based overseas. And I understand he appeared in person today. I knew he was based overseas. So he appeared in person. So they're going all out. But at the end of the day, as we have said, it's about the evidence that you have to produce. And I understand too, people have asked me the question about the sudden withdrawal of the tax evasion charges, the $191 billion. We learned last week that suddenly, I think it was Thursday or Friday, the prosecutors turned up and said they're discontinuing, the charge. And people were shocked. People were shocked. But I understand, based on what they've said and based on what I've read, they did so because if that trial was ongoing, that might have interfered with the extradition trial. That might have caused the extradition trial to be delayed further. And they said further to that, that they had this issue of double jeopardy. In that, you remember, they are charged in the US for some things relating to the same tax evasion and all this type of thing. So the people have said, and based on what I understand, that it was drawn to their attention that if the Mohammeds were able to either get off or whatever the local courts would have decided, that would have affected the case in the US because you can't try them twice for the same thing. And I did some research on it, and they talk about double jeopardy and all of that. And I did some research to find out basically what double jeopardy is that if you are charged for an offense and you're acquitted or you're convicted for that offense, you cannot be charged again for the same offense. So that was the fear that if they charged Mohammed as they did with the tax evasion, either you're acquitted or convicted, then you can't try them in the US for the same offense or anywhere else for the same offense. So they decided to discontinue the tax charge in Guyana. In other words, Guyana got no interest in this thing any longer. Let the US deal with it. Strange, yeah? Strange. Guyana has no interest in recovering this $191 billion that they claim that these people owe them. Let the US deal with some 50 million or something. That is rather strange. But that is because I understand because of double jeopardy. And you got to understand that concept, right? Double jeopardy. If you are tried and convicted on a charge or acquitted, you can't be tried or convicted on the same charge. If they were to attempt to do so, you're going to hear is Latin CC auto for acquit or auto for convict, meaning that you're convicted before or you were acquitted before and it can't come back, cannot come back. So but then the question is, but they didn't know when the runner institute, this $191 billion charge, they didn't know, having regards to the fact that they knew that a trial is likely to take place in the United States because an extradition request has been made. They know that. Let me bring in CC for him to office say, you ain't got much batting today. I recognize that. But let me bring in CC. CC?
Yeah. It's
go ahead, man.
It's a catalog of errors. They're blundering all the time. The bottom line was they didn't want Mohammed become a member of parliament. That's why with breakneck speed, they bring a diamond magistrate, hoping that this diamond magistrate would be in their favor. But they were disappointed. The magistrate, I think she used her conscience, and she decided that her conscience and the constitution will be our guide. And she gave him bail. And that's right, all kind of thing. Withdraw the charges. As you said, the law of double jeopardy, where you cannot be tried twice for the same offense. People say, Atufos acquit or Atufos convict. I was charged before and I was acquitted. I was charged before for the same offense, the same circumstances, and I was set free. So you can't bring it back to me. And so many things, that they're trying all kind of strategy that then working. All kind of things they're trying that ain't working. But the bottom line is that they want Mohammed, and they still will try that Mohammed. They will still try that Mohammed won't be the leader of the opposition All those things that they're trying left, right, and center. But then I get into like any step they make is a false step. One step forward, two step backward. And I'm not surprised that they didn't have full disclosure, It would have shocked me if this morning you heard they had full disclosure. And even as you mentioned in our matter, we over after the year, then the prosecutor hustling to make the disclosure. That's a trend. That's a pattern of the government. Just trying something. Remember when we had our matter there when Paul when you challenge the constitutional matter where the president suspended us. Remember when you the attorney general bringing a kind of thing, kind of last minute thing, delaying tax, but it eventually ended, you know, and it ended in our favor the judge said, Prasad, that it was illegal, unconstitutional, null and void, and has no legal effect. So they're going to catch something, whether they bring in overseas people or not, they're going to try that kind of thing. And I'm not surprised that they didn't have full disclosure this morning. And I could bet a couple dollars. So I mean, I'm not a rich man, but I'll get a couple granger about the place there. That at the next go round, they still will not have full disclosure.
Yeah, delayed tactics, delayed tactics. I see we got a retarded student saying that it's Mohammed and still have to pay the taxes. That ain't bother me here nor there whether they gotta pay the taxes or not. The point is we talking about the process. We see some of y'all are so retarded you can't understand that. We talking about a legal process. And the ball is in their court to make sure that the legal process is gone through. And the dancing is them withdraw the charge, cockroach. It's not we. They withdrew the charge. And we're saying that if you thought this thing out carefully, would you not have known that you can't institute this charge while this other U.S., as you say, is U.S. versus the Mohammed? Yeah, it's U.S. versus the Mohammed, and you knew that all along. So how come you're bringing this local charge now in relation to the same elements of the same matter? Elements of the same matter. But you see, people like this, some name the post put up there, they ain't get understanding. That is the problem. They ain't get no understanding. Right? Now, we talk about, we did mention obscure, the Mohammed vehicle being impounded for obscure number plate. Let me show you all this one. Watch. This is one up on the road. This is one. This is an obscure rear view. I remember back in the day that this was a no-no. This was a no-no. And let me talk about this when we talk about obscure number plate. You know what is an obscure number plate? An obscure number plate is a number plate not in keeping with the prescribed dimension in the Motor Vehicle and Road Traffic Act. The Motor Vehicle and Road Traffic Act has specimens of the length and the width of the number and the letter there. So if you do not comply with that, that is considered an obscure. So all them digital number plate and all them things they get, it's illegal. It's against the law. But let me tell you this. And I hope they listen carefully. I hope they tell this to the new Minister of Home Affairs. Right? It is time that the government do away with this nonsense where you got to register a vehicle, the GRA give you a number, and you got to go and get the number plate made. It is time they do away with that. They have enough resources now to make sure that GRA prepares those license plate. So when a vehicle is registered, they give you your registration, and they would have ensured that the specifications as prescribed by the law are met. Not for you go to somebody at the roadside and you decide to make your own number plate. How can you operate in a modern society like that? That encourages the lawlessness. The system encourages the lawlessness. I remember when Ronald Gadraj, the late Ronald Gadraj, was Minister of Home Affairs, they were moving, at least that was broached, right? that we gotta go towards making sure that I think they had even something for it to be made at the prison. Somewhere it has to be made to a standard. Not what's going on now. You go to register a vehicle. They tell you your number is PS000, and then you go and you get somebody at the roadside there for make it PS000, and they make it with any in any design or any style. It is time that they do away with that. It is time that be done. And that should be so easy. That's just so easy to implement. We're going to talk about putting people out to work and so on. Think about it, because some of those very people can be employed to produce the license plate on behalf of GRA, right? But I am saying it is time for the arrangement where the owner of the vehicle has to go and make his own license plate. That should be done away with. Because that too leads to the lawlessness, where you get all sorts of number plate, you can't even recognize some of them. You can't recognize many of those things, and they're all illegal. But you single out a couple of people out, or you get campaign, or you deal with some, but you got to adjust it in a very systematic and fundamental way. And someone told me some time ago that when police stop vehicle, they ask you for your registration. What police want to do with registration? You're not supposed to, you don't have to produce no registration, the vehicle certificate of registration to the police. The certification of registration is not required for a traffic stop. Police might require it if you want to prove ownership in some criminal investigation, but not for the traffic map on the road, to tell you that they want to see a certificate of registration. So it's all sort of craziness going on. All sort of craziness going on in the place. And again, they're not sitting down and look, let me understand. There are some things that can be easily implemented to bring some order back into the system. And this license plate thing, the number plate as we call it, is one of them. How difficult can that be? How difficult? So maybe the new Minister of Home Affairs can take that up as one of our initial significant projects to talk to whoever is the Minister of Finance, the Commissioner General, to say, look, let's stop this nonsense. And maybe from January 1 next year or sometime, we can go into this place, in this system, where we have the numbers or the license plate made. Of course, you're going to charge a fee to the person, right? You're going to charge a fee to the person. We have it made to a particular standard. So we're going to hear about obscure number plate later. And over a period of time, all of those in the system will be phased out. Because you can deal with all that you can start with the new ones, and then you can have a system where all the other plates come in and make sure that they are dealt with properly, right? All. And so, again, these things can be done. But as we have said repeatedly on this program, this knee-jerk, I think I'm going to work. You need to make sure you sit down and address the traffic situation in a comprehensive manner. And you need to have the policemen on the road properly trained. Because policemen know that people got to get 5 days to produce a certificate of insurance. And if they know what is the procedure, if a vehicle is deemed to have tint and all them type of thing in violation of the law, God help us. It is opening a can of worms. And we know a lot of allegations are made about corruption. We know. And I'm going to deal with that on the next program, because the minister is recently made a statement about stamping down on corruption. She's making a lot of statements, you know. She's making a lot of statements. We raised the issue here where it is alleged that some sexual harassment and blackmailing, that is the word they use, blackmailing, where it's alleged some senior officer is involved. According to Big Smith Newswatch, he's a deputy commissioner. I know there are 5. And I said I still doing my investigation to find out who is the culprit. I think I'm getting close. You know, they say smoke. I got to fire yet. Smoke. I'm getting close to identifying who the person is. Very close. But what has happened to that investigation? What has happened to that investigation? What has happened to the investigation with the sex scandal at the police training facility? What has happened to it? What has happened to the report that you received that Soku seized financial documents from the police finance office and ranks were sent to Mabaruma in Region 1 in furtherance of that investigation? What has happened to that? What has happened? And let me tell you all, I almost forget that one of the students told me over the weekend that I'm talking here about Sergeant Vaughn. You know, Alex Vaughn, the police sergeant who was shot and killed on March 12, 2024. Ma tell me, say, me sums rang. And we don't dispute things, you know. So I went back last night and I checked. For March the 12th, 2024 to today, November the 10th, 2025, and the student was right, I was wrong. 607 days since Sergeant Vaughn was shot and killed, and we can't hear much. Initially, we heard it was friendly fire. Someone was under close arrest, and up to now, we ain't anything more. We heard too that they said in relation to the robbery in Church Street, that a police inspector and a police sergeant were arrested for robbing the Chinese man who had won some money at the casino. $5 million they said they robbed. The DPP recommended criminal charges against both of them. And I understand that the sergeant is still on duty. You know what I'm to the inspector? The sergeant is still working. You know they're charging for the robbery. But that is the problem, Minister. That is part of the problem. Sometime ago, they told us about another sergeant at West Demerara, Vidroop Station, who they say was in cahoots with some housebreaking people, some burglars across the river. He was under close arrest. That is months and months ago. You ain't hearing nothing further. And that is part of the problem. Too much of secrecy. You have these bad eggs. You have these bad eggs. When they're found, you have to deal with them constantly. What are you hiding? What are you hiding? They come out with the initial statement and tell us OPR is investigating. And then you don't hear anything more. OPR is investigating. You don't hear anything more. And that's what I want. That people have these matters have a very limited shelf life. So they come out initially and they tell you, oh, okay, we're doing this, we're investigating. And there's no follow-up. Absolutely no follow-up. Absolutely. And that is part. They tell you, or the minister make a statement, oh, we took immediate action when it was brought to the attention of the commissioner and the ranks were transferred. The rank officer and about 3 or 4 they transferred. That is the extent of the action you're going to take against these people who are alleged to be violating the female recruits and male recruits in the college. And then I reported here to you students that it is alleged that some of the trainees who gave statement implicating some instructors, right? In the first instance, they were called to sign new statements. And then what happened then? Some of them were told that they are dismissed. But poor recruit, they don't know better. So when they told them that they are dismissed, they pack up, must cry a few tears, and they're gone. And as soon as they're gone, they book them absent without leave and report that they're absent so they can be dismissed. That is how wicked these people are. That is what is alleged. Are you going to cause an investigation to be done into that? I have at least 2 names of recruits who were so treated. At least 2. Right? That is what is going on. So you talk about how people are going to get confidence in the police. How? And I maintain, before bringing CC for his closing and wrap up, the force need reform. The force is deformed and needs reform. Can reform with certain people in position. Like Ike, I can call his name. If he is there, because you see what is happening under him. The vice president got a ball out, call he out, only personally responsible for an uninsured Lamborghini to be driving on the road. Where they see that? You had all them enough police in Parliament and around the Atachon Convention Center where Parliament was there. They see that? They know. But Akin did not do anything, as we said on Friday. The reason why Akin did not act, because Akin waited on instructions. So now that he get the whistle, the dark whistle, he said the next day they acted. What more evidence you want than that to show that this man is incompetent? What more evidence you want? He ain't done nothing. Monday to Thursday, or he not done nothing. Thursday, the Vice President Carly out, personally responsible. Friday, the police trail the vehicle, pull the vehicle in illegally. What more evidence do you want? What more evidence that you want to see that this man incompetent? He should go. He passed retirement age long because he got board certificate. People not sure about the board certificate. But even with the last one that he presented, he has passed the age of retirement. Why you keep it there? The man passed retirement and you're promoting. The man took $8.5 million in the office, admitted, and you are promoted to commissioner after then. So what you expect? What you expect? See, before you bring in, let me tell you this part, man. Let me tell you this part. The Attorney General, Anil Nandlal, SC MP, I remember that? Last week, not last week, before the last, he made a statement. Let me hear what he says. Hear what he says. Listen to him carefully.
I am told that during the course of next week, we will get some more extradition requests. Perhaps Mohammed will feel a little better when that is made public. And we will make that public once we receive them, the same way that we have made the Mohammed extradition request public.
Well, that was before the last. So the next week, you talking about last week, right? Next week is last week. We didn't see nothing yet. We haven't seen nothing yet. Is it that the U.S. authorities believe that the Attorney General was preemptive in that disclosure and therefore decide, you ain't running we show. We can make a request when we have to make the request. You can't come out and try to use that for political reasons. So we don't get let me don't give him out too much liberty. It has not been made public yet. So if it is that the request was made for the other extraditions, and who are those persons? Time will reveal. Time will reveal who the persons are. Because as I've said, when you look at the site, they have several sealed documents. Sealed documents in relation to the same extradition, with the charges, the indictment against the Mohammed. Several sealed documents. There's a suspicion that those are sealed indictments against others. We shall see. But nonetheless, again, you come and you talk and it will come true. So we're still waiting. We're still waiting. Let me bring in CC for his closing, man. CC?
Yeah, a couple of things, I watch the Attorney General in the background, and I look at those shelves, they're empty. And then I was told a couple days ago that it's Quattro. You go in the office, he had a whole set of certificates full up on the walls. Some 4-hour certificates, some 2-hour certificates, some 1 day. He clearing them out too. I don't know if it's an indication that he's going. I don't know. But Paul, you mentioned we get some bright students, some wonderful students. You mentioned one pull you up because he says something's wrong. Well, one pulled me up Saturday night because he said my English was wrong. Yeah. One who has been looking out for me since I was a constable at Myconi, who I've been learning quite a lot and continued to learn from him. And I know we don't always talk the standard English. Sometimes we use broken language. But this one was very important, and he's correct because check it out. I used the term, I say attorney generals. Attorney generals. When it should have been the other way around. Attorneys general. That the plural is on the attorney. So instead of me saying attorney generals, I should have said attorneys general. Thank you very much, 7464, Mr. Vibert Smith, who have been looking out for me since 1973 when I was in Myconi. And I've been learning so much from him. I learned so much from him in terms of CID that when I went to the Northwest, I told a big thing in the CID, although I was a member of the CID. Thank you, and thanks to our students who from time to time have been making input, have been calling us, and giving us advice in terms of how we've been doing, as the case may be.
Oh, thank you, my brother. I have one question to ask you. When you look at those certificates that were there, did you see a certificate of insurance for a Lamborghini?
No,
The other one was removed as well.
I didn't see the one, but I think he's well aware, because he understand he went in that vehicle several times. I don't know if the insurance were there, but I didn't see the one.
All right, that's the teaser one. Folks, we've had a long morning. Thanks for your attendance. Thanks for your attendance. Another wonderful attendance from you students. I hope that we were able to bring you up to date with many subjects and so on. We try to do, we have a lot to talk about, we still have a lot more to talk about. We still have a lot more, but that's going to be all for today. And our next program is scheduled, God's Pay Life, on Wednesday. Things are happening so rapidly in this country that I can very well expect that between now and Wednesday when we come again, if the Lord so allows, that we're going to have a whole set of things popping up that we got to make sure we do some triaging to make sure that the ones that we feel are more important come to the attention. All are important, but some we feel you should know right away, we bring it to your attention. So, as I've said, we had a good morning. As I would normally say to you, this morning I had some technical issues. I was able to resolve it with some help very early. I'm still unable to resolve the issue with the number with the names on YouTube showing up like an email address. For example, like this one, all the YouTube is showing up at something, whereas the ones from YouTube showing up in the usual manner like this. The ones that showing up like this. So I don't know, but I'm going to work on it. I'm going to work on it to see if it can be resolved. So let me thank you for your attendance again today, and say to you, God's Pay Life. We're going to be here on Wednesday for another episode, another interesting episode of Speaking Out, exposing corruption and incompetence. Until then, no therapy today. No therapy today. Until then, stay well. Bye.